What's going on, everybody? Welcome to PFF's live NFL preview show, Wild Card Weekend Edition.
Super Wild Card Weekend.
Super Wild Card Weekend Edition. Sorry, I got to give it the appropriate title there.
Are you allowed to say super, or you have to say big Wild Card Weekend?
The big game Wild Card Weekend. Can't do copyright. So glad that you guys are here hanging out with us. We're going to preview all of the big games that we have over these 3 days, not just 2, now it's 3. That's what makes it so super. I'm Trevor Sikkema. With me, I have Sam Monson, Ian Hartitz, and Eric Eager. Fellas, we finally made it to the playoffs. No more of this, okay? We can get rid of Eric's stupid simulations, what the games mean. Nobody cares about all those numbers. Now it's just about football versus football. How we feeling on this beautiful Saturday?
Good. You didn't get the uniform memo? No?
You know, I had a gray sweatshirt at home that I really should have brought.
Yeah.
Just because everybody would have looked at it and been like, did you guys call each other? Yes, we did, because we're good friends.
I think weeks 1 through wild card, like us three have progressively gotten more and more casual. But here's Trevor still.
I know, just
standing proud.
The standards.
Great day to be great.
Two little buttons here, it's just fancy. I'm just trying to bring up.
It's cold out.
It is. Ultimately, it is cold out, and so I can't blame you guys for the hoodies. We also have Kendall Valenzuela here with us, who is also wearing a completely neutral color.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so now it truly is me. It's just me here in the studio on the desk.
Yeah,
but, Kendall, how are we doing today?
I'm good. I'm watching the YouTube stream, and you guys are all
the super YouTube show.
Yeah, the super YouTube show. Everyone's for the Raiders. The chat is already going crazy, so it's going to be a good show.
When you say everybody, do you just mean that Austin logged in?
Austin is
and
here,
he's just spamming Raiders?
He's telling Eric to let's go. He's waiting for Eric down by the banks, and he's ready to go.
Okay, all right. Well, Kendall's taking a look at all of your YouTube comments, everything that we have going on there that we're going to talk about throughout the Super Wild Card show. So make sure you get your comments in there. Kendall is going to relay those to us. I think we should just keep the bit where everything this show is like super. So like we're about to do the
There's no way that gets old.
Well,
the
only
AFC projections.
Super idea, man.
Well, the only thing that messed it up was the San Diego Superchargers not making the playoffs. And
that's brutal.
You know what I mean? Like,
That was brutal.
remember the song though? San Diego Superchargers. Like that was.
No, come on, it was good. Let's keep going. That was good. No, let's go. All right, so let's talk about some PFF projections. I trolled Eric at the beginning of the show saying that we weren't going to bring up his numbers anymore, but we are. We're going to talk about who we think has the highest chance to make it to the Super Bowl. That one didn't need a Super Bowl maybe. From the AFC, and it is the Tennessee Titans. It is the number 1 seed. They have such an advantage by not playing a game here on Wild Card Weekend. Right after them, we got the Kansas City Chiefs at 24%, Buffalo Bills third at 19. Then we've got Bengals at 12. Let's go, baby. Patriots at 8, Raiders at 6, and the Steelers just a 3% chance to make the Super Bowl out of this group. Eric, did anything surprise you when you were running these numbers?
Well, it does. I mean, in the betting markets, the Kansas City Chiefs are the favorite to come out of the AFC. They're the second favorite to win the Super Bowl. Our model simply says that like shit happens this first round of the playoffs, right? And like,
it does.
And it not just necessarily that we think that the Steelers are going to beat Kansas City, but it's more of, like they can get banged up, right? They played Tyreek Hill a fraction of the snaps the other day. They almost lost to Denver even, and Denver was a double-digit underdog to them. So like it's just a lot of stuff can happen. Tennessee, we all think of Tennessee as being bad. But like a lot of the reasons we think that they're bad are going to be, basically, solved, right? With Derrick Henry coming back, both wide receivers getting healthy, them having a week to prepare. I think the Titans are being underrated right now as the 1 seed in the AFC.
And we've talked just throughout the playoffs about, not the playoffs, regular season, the Colts, the Browns, the Titans, all these teams that could be a different opponent, provide that mismatch problem in the trenches. Well, as we saw with the Colts, you can't beat the Jaguars, you can't make the playoffs. Browns, I think that ship sailed a long time ago. So I think the Titans, maybe the Patriots, you can make this argument for too, but at a minimum, even if you don't think they're necessarily the top team in your power rankings, they could be a tough out for anyone.
I think that actually plays into the hands of Buffalo, right? One of the problems I think the Bills are facing is that they built this team to beat the Chiefs, but all of the teams that were standing between them and the Chiefs were built completely differently. Yeah. The last week knocked a bunch of those sides out. No Colts, no Browns, no Ravens. Like, okay, you have to get past one of them first in the Patriots, but if they do, Buffalo all of a sudden actually matches up pretty well against a lot of these.
That's a great point, Sam. I mean, like the fact is like no one wanted
super point.
Super point. No one wanted to face the Indianapolis Colts a month ago. No one wanted to face the New England Patriots a month ago, and no one wanted to face the Chargers for most of the season. And like, you know, the fact is like, if you're one of these top AFC teams, you're pretty freaking lucky that the Raiders are in and the Steelers are in. Mm-hmm. You don't have to face Justin Herbert, and you know, New England's not the side that everybody believes they are anymore, right? And they do represent that sort of risk to Buffalo right now, but I think everybody is sort of more like, hey, that risk is reduced. You know, that game that was on Monday Night Football that was in Buffalo just a month and a half ago, that game opened Buffalo favored by 3.5. It is now 4.5, and in some places I got a 5, right? So you like the market's belief in the New England Patriots has gone down since that game on Monday Night Football.
If we go over to the NFC, it's not a 3-team race like it is in the AFC. It's just a 2-team race, with the Green Bay Packers getting 36% of the simulation to reach the Super Bowl from this conference. You got the Buccaneers at 24%, but then it drops all the way down. Cowboys and Rams tied at 11% there. You got the 49ers 8%, Cardinals 6%, and then the Eagles 4%. Eric, what stands out for me there?
Yeah, this is the Packers Super Bowl to lose, right? Like that, and I know, like, if you look at this historically, the team for which that's true always ends up losing, right? Last year it was Kansas City. The year before it was Baltimore. The year before that it was Kansas City. You know, in 2017 it was, you know, probably New England, if not Minnesota. You know, 2016 it was the Falcons. Like, it's crazy, and it's also why one of the reasons why you've seen, and Aaron Rodgers is probably going to win the MVP. You have not seen a team possessed the regular season MVP since 1999, right? And that's just, again,
wow.
So everybody wants to look at it. The Green Bay Packers are the favorite, but take solace if you are a fan of a team who isn't the favorite rarely wins. Yeah, and that's where you see it, you know, with the percentages there.
Yeah, you see it with the numbers, right? That you would still take the field over the favorite every single time, and that's what those are showing you. The thing that's most interesting to me is that all the way through the NFC, there's been this kind of tier of, you know, at least 4, maybe 5 teams that seem to have separated themselves from everybody else. But all of a sudden, it has become that 2-horse race, and Dallas and the Rams and the Cardinals have fallen off, and they're down there with the rest of the wild card teams, not in the same strata as Green Bay and Tampa Bay.
When you look at the whole NFC, like the top 7 teams in the NFC in point differential all made the playoffs. In the AFC, the Raiders and Steelers are 12th and 13th in point differential in their own conference. Like, it just shook out that way. Like, we're talking about the Chargers would have been terrible for any of these teams to fight out. I don't know if there's a missing team in the NFC that we're like, oh man, they really should have been in there. And I think it kind of reflects what we've seen all year. NFC maybe a little bit more of a complete.
Minnesota would have given the LOLs, right? They would have taken Tampa to the overtime, and Kirk Cousins got sacked for a safety in overtime, and the Bucs move on. Like, I feel like that would have been what happened. I think this game on Sunday between the Bucs and the Eagles that we'll preview soon is like, that's going to be a lot more of a normal game. But like, the crazy thing now is what we talked about in the AFC. We said the Browns, the Colts, the Patriots, the actual manifestation of that team, that run-first team that no one wants to play because they're so unique, that exists in the NFC with San Francisco. And that, I think, is where, you know, there are reports coming out today that Mike McCarthy's job is on the line. Like, there are people in Dallas that are feeling the heat right now, and I think everybody believes the San Francisco 49ers, being who they are the most live underdog this week.
We are diving right into these game previews. We're getting right to it. But before we do that, I do have to talk to the people about something really cool that Western and Southern is doing. And that's giving you the chance to win the ultimate game day feast. And how you do that? You ask questions. Whether it's football or financial, PFF's very own Chris Collinsworth is teaming up with Western and Southern to get you ready for any of your financial or football questions. You can ask Chris all sorts of stuff about his old playing days, some Sunday night football questions, and of course, Western and Southern. If you have a financial goal, or even if you don't even know what your financial goal should be, they can help you out, but you gotta ask them questions. You ask questions by going to westernsouthern.com/askchris. That's westernsouthern.com/askchris. Any question that you ask them, whether it's a question to Collinsworth or whether it's a financial question, it gets you a ticket to win a catered event of up to $2,500. If they choose you, what they'll do is they'll work with you. You can get a local restaurant to cater your, I'll say, big game party that happens on February 13th, 2022. I think you guys know what big game I am talking about. But in order to win this ultimate game day feast, you got to ask some questions. All the questions will be answered on either Chris Collinsworth's podcast or at Western and Southern's Instagram. With Western and Southern, you guys can rest assured on game day. Make sure you get your questions in so you guys can win this ultimate game day feast.
It's a super deal.
It is a super deal.
That was a super ad read.
Thank you. I'm glad that you think that it was a super ad read.
As the worst ad reader of the group? Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me.
No, me.
I was going to be like, no, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair, actually. The Cincinnati Bengals and the Las Vegas Raiders. I know you still want to call them the Oakland Raiders.
No, they earned it.
Okay, so they're in the playoffs. So they're the Las Vegas Raiders. So the running internet joke with these two teams is that for the Bengals, no one has ever texted someone about a Bengals playoff win, because the last time they won in the playoffs was 1991, correct? Mm-hmm. And texting was not invented yet. And for the Las Vegas Raiders, last time they won a playoff game, they were the Oakland Raiders, and it was when they made the Super Bowl back in 2002. So
no Facebook by at that point in time.
Or Meta.
Yeah.
There was no. We are breaking one of the longest playoff winning droughts here in this game. Somebody's got to win it. Sam, who is it?
Somebody's got to win it. I really like. There's a couple of things I think that can break in Las Vegas's favor and make this game an awful lot closer than people seem to be expecting it to be. Cincinnati's been on fire recently. When you give the ball to Joe Burrow, it's been fantastic. But the one great equalizer to that is the Las Vegas pass rush. Max Crosby finished the year with 101 total pressures, all by himself. Only the third guy we've ever seen clear 100 pressures in a single season. The other two, Aaron Donald
Heard of him.
and J.J. Watt.
Heard of him.
Back before injuries robbed J.J. Watt of being the best defender in the NFL. That's the kind of tear Crosby's been on this season, albeit helped by going up against some pretty bad right tackles for a lot of the year. But Cincinnati's offensive line has been pretty banged up. The second half of the season, that group is 30th in pass blocking efficiency. You know, Joe Burrow has been one of the better graded quarterbacks under pressure, but his turnover-worthy play rate spikes through the roof when you can put him under heat. If the Raiders can get after him consistently in this game, there's a good chance he's going to put the ball in harm's way, and that's the difference.
What do you think?
I'm just a little worried about, because I hear you saying, but can Derek Carr and the Raiders keep up even if this happens? Because Burrow, even if he is going to go out there and not be his best, we've still seen a much higher floor from him throughout the year than what's been for Carr in the second half. And really, it has been a huge drop-off correlated with when Henry Ruggs left the picture. 1.5 fewer yards per attempt. The average target depth has cratered. And now we also have to worry about this potential weather. Fun note from PFF's own Austin Gale. He's out getting drunk tailgating the game right now. But I have the stat for you. And this is Carr's career when he isn't playing in sub-40-degree weather. 50.1 PFF passing grade, 5.8 yards per attempt. You guys can see on the screen for yourself. Not so good when things get cold. Is he a winning Lambo guy?
I mean, he can't be with stats like that. There's no way.
Maybe like a September or like 10th game or something like that. Yeah, and this is why I like the under in this game. It's 49 at times. It was I bet it at 49, 48.5. There's also first half you can get 24.5 under. There's also Raiders team total under 21.5. There's a bunch of different ways you can bet this game. And one of the big ones, and again, like we're going to talk about this with Dallas as well. You got to contextualize the results for some of these teams, right? The Raiders had like 13 points in the first 5-6 minutes of the game against the Colts. Mm-hmm. Got 10 points the rest of that game in that win. They only got 16 points in a win at Cleveland. Half of Cleveland's team's out with COVID. And then last week, we got to remember the Chargers were playing a high leverage game. So throw the data out, right? And so since the Henry Ruggs...
Throw the data out.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to do that?
You are allowed to do that. Yeah. The Raiders offense has been utterly horrendous basically since Henry Ruggs came out of the team's lineup. And I think that's really the edge that you have to have if you're the Bengals in this one. I don't think the Bengals put up, Burrow 400 yards, 4 touchdowns in this game. Mm-hmm. I think it's much more of like a 20-13 type of game. And all the stuff that Sam is saying is true. I don't think the Bengals are going to be great offensively in this game, but I just don't know if the Raiders are going to be the team to be able to capitalize on it this round of the playoffs.
I like the Raiders getting 5.5 points here. Ben Lindsay, he's a guru of PFF Ultimate. He knows a ton of data that we have, and I was talking with him earlier this week, and I think it's easy to look at these two teams and go, yeah, okay, I'd believe in Joe Burrow and the Bengals a lot more than I believe in the Raiders. But on paper, it's not the best matchup for the Bengals. And we look at those areas where Joe Burrow has been superhuman, has been fantastic, has taken his team to the next level this year. And a lot of times it has come under pressure. Yeah, he throws more turnover-worthy plays, but everybody does when they're under pressure. Really, Burrow also has a ton of big-time throws when he's under pressure, right? The thing about the Raiders is, lowest blitz percentage in the league. They don't throw a lot at you. They rely on their front four. They rely on Max Crosby to give them that kind of edge there. And because of that, Burrow's just not going to have nearly as many of those opportunities to look like absolute Superman against the blitz. Another thing, Burrow loves throwing man coverage to Jamar Chase. Raiders don't play a lot of man coverage. Almost 60-70% of what they do is either cover 3 or a combination of cover 3, cover 2, all of that. So there's a lot that is not going the Bengals' direction for Burrow to be this superhuman kind of a player like he normally is. So maybe we'll still see it, but it's ultimately why I think the game is a little bit closer.
The player prop that I like for this game, if you want to bet it, is T. Higgins over 5.5 catches. You're getting that about like 130 or so.
Yeah.
Like that's the player I think that has the game in this one, not necessarily Jamar Chase.
One more before we move on.
The last point being that there is a very big chance that Zach Taylor kind of runs home to mommy and hands the ball off to Joe Mixon every first down, right? The success has been born of letting Joe Burrow win this game by himself when they've needed to. Now it's a fresh start. It's the playoffs. What do you do in the playoffs?
You're also favored in this game.
You get
That's
more
the difference.
conservative.
It's true. It's true.
So do you think Taylor has like phone calls with his parents after the game? I just thought Joe needed a couple more chances on 1st and 10.
Look, I'm not revealing my sources. I'm just saying.
Zach Taylor's parents. Bills versus Patriots. Round 3 is the night game here tonight on Saturday night. Josh Allen, Mac Jones. Obviously, this is a team with Buffalo that has been on the up. Obviously, we saw Josh Allen take a huge step last year. Still played really well this year. It's Bill Belichick. Don't really need to say much more about Bill. Sam, what do we think about this matchup here as round 3 for these two teams and basically the rubber match in a divisional game?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited for round 3 of this particular game. A lot of times when you see two teams face the third time, there's not a ton to be excited about, but I've said since the first game that I do think that New England matches up well stylistically with the Bills. The Bills have shown they will beat up bad teams, and if you're not capable of hanging with them physically, they're just better than you are, and they'll do an awful lot of good. But New England are one of those teams that can establish a physical ground game. With ugly weather, it might play that way anyway. The big key for New England is, like, Mac Jones has not played well down the stretch. Finished the year as our 10th graded quarterback in the NFL, PFF, but he's got basically one good game in the last 6, and that came against Jacksonville, right?
So we know he's better than Carson Wentz.
Yes, that's true. But the Patriots need him to do something.
Oh, that's not going to be the last Wentz joke. I know it's not going to be.
The Patriots need him to be viable. If he plays badly, I don't think they beat Buffalo, but if he just does just enough, does what he was doing earlier in the season where he picks up the easy stuff, then they've got a real shot of swinging it up.
This is sort of a weird game because we always talk about how Bill Belichick has the experience in these games, right? But first time starting quarterback in the playoffs. This is the first time Bill Belichick has gone on the road in the wild card round in his tenure with New England, also with his tenure with the Browns. But you look at the Bills; they're a team. This is the 3rd straight year they've made the playoffs, and I believe 4th year out of 5. They played 2 home playoff games last year. They're used to sort of coming at the AFC from one of these divisional title seeds. So they have the experience. The question becomes: is Josh Allen as good as he was last year? I mean, so far this year, 6 percentage points off his completion percentage, a full yard per attempt off his yards per attempt, and 15 passer rating points and 10 PFF grading points off of his marks from last year. This is just not necessarily quite as efficient of an offense, and can New England take advantage of that?
Even if he was, Allen has a track record of kind of imploding in the postseason. Yeah. So whether or not he's playing as well as he was last year, he just needs to avoid that.
I think it's a little bit of a different Allen at this point. And you mentioned the physicality of this game. I do think that that's going to be something that you've got to pay heavy attention to. Something that Buffalo was going through in the middle of the season, and really when they were struggling the most, is they didn't really find that run-pass balance. They were really passing the ball so much, it was almost like nobody feared the Bills on the ground at all. And you've got to have some sort of an identity on the ground. And I felt like, and I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago, I felt like it must have stemmed from Josh Allen is our best player. We don't want to take the ball out of his hands. And maybe when we run the ball as much as we want to, or maybe we should, we are taking the ball out of his hands. And it just felt like Brian Daboll and the Bills didn't want to do that. But kind of as of late, down the stretch a little bit here, they've used Allen a lot more by design in the run game. Yeah. So therefore, they are getting what they want out of the ground game, yet keeping the ball in Allen's hands. And it's really paid off for him. He's got 2 elite rushing grades. This is since week 13. He's got 2 grades in the 80s, 1 grade just below 70, but all of that that's really great rushing numbers, and I think that has really been contributing to what we see now as more of a balance on the Bills' offense, and I think that's why it gives me a little bit more faith that they can handle or at least keep up or not get manhandled against some of these more physical teams.
He had
like you were mentioning with the
763
Patriots.
rushing yards.
He
Like, that's
averaged a
ton.
league-high 6.3 yards per carry. You could argue that a scramble should be treated as a completed pass. Like, that's what it is. The ball did not gain yards on a pass play. And the fact that Josh, Lamar Jackson, all these guys, we never even bring this up half the time. We talked for 5 minutes about this game, about Josh's ability as a passer, and it's like, oh, by the way, he's a top 3 rushing quarterback in the league right now and has been since he entered the game. So that really has been the rushing offense. And to Devin Singletary's credit, he's had a good year as well. But let's see if Bill Belichick can take away a number 1 option like he does. He's the only coach in the league that tries to take away the opponent's number 1 player. Hasn't exactly worked, though, against Stephon Diggs in their 4 career matchups. Yes, we did get the 1 dud, but we saw that in that crazy wind and snow game when Josh even hit the dude twice with the ball in the end zone, just couldn't come down with it. So J.C. Jackson, has been on the wrong end of a lot of this production. It's going to come down to, can Diggs be what he's been for the majority of his Buffalo tenure, one of the best receivers in the NFL?
No Jalen Mills this week as well because of COVID. They also, Sean Wade's a depth guy for them in defensive backfield. So even though I think Belichick will handle that better than any other coach, it's still not necessarily a trivial thing to handle against a Buffalo wide receiver crew that goes 4 or 5 deep.
Even though this is Super Wild Card Weekend, we're going to get into a little bit of mock draft madness. We're going to make sure that we're throwing some love to some of the teams that just missed out on the playoffs. We're going to get to a top 10 mock. But before we get to that, got to talk to people about Best Ball because Best Ball is back over at Underdog Fantasy. If you've never played Best Ball before, here's how it works. You log in, you either go to UnderdogFantasy.com or you download their app. You pick the players that you think are going to score the most points throughout the playoffs. And that's it. Underdog Fantasy then optimizes your lineup for you. Whoever scores the most points, you're going to be able to get as much points as possible. But, of course, you only have until the games kick off. So if you're watching this, bring up another tab, go sign up. Use promo code PFF because if you do, you're also going to get matched $100 for whatever you deposit there. So if you deposit $100, they'll be able to match you up to $100. Whatever you want to throw in, they'll match you up to that number. Go check it out. Go play some Best Ball. It's a fun way to get some skin in the game throughout the playoffs, all over at UnderdogFantasy.com or the Underdog Fantasy app. It can't be just about the playoff teams. There's a lot of playoff. There's a lot of playoff. There's a lot of teams in the NFL that didn't make the playoffs.
Also,
their
the
fans aren't.
Colts.
The Chargers
they're
are
one of the teams. They're one of the teams. And so we're not going to show love to the Colts because they're not picking in the top 10. But we are going to run through a top 10 with the finalized draft order here using PFF's mock draft simulator. If you guys have not seen the mock draft simulator yet, you can go over to PFF.com. You can check this bad boy out. You can customize it. You can see everything you got on the right. You can run up to 6 rounds now. It used to just be 2. Now we're letting you draft all the way up to 6 rounds. You degenerates out there, and when I say you degenerates, I'm speaking right to me, that we now get to do 6-round mock drafts here in January. So we're going to highlight the top 10. As you can see, the draft order, we're starting off with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We have the Detroit Lions, Houston Texans, New York Jets, and Giants got 2 picks in here. We've got the Carolina Panthers, that Chicago Bears pick, and that Seattle Seahawks pick. Go to the 2 New York teams, but Denver also sneaking in there with the 9th spot, Falcons at the 8th spot. So let's run it. Let's run it. Let's get things kicked off. We've got the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 1. And there's all sorts of options that you see on this mock draft simulator. You can check out potential trades. You can see exactly how many picks you have. You can trade amongst any teams you want, although the simulator will show you teams that are interested maybe in trading up, so you might have a better chance of making a trade happen there. So whether or not you want to make a trade, you can see that. We've got multiple years, 2022, 2023, that you can move on from, but we're not going to do any trades this time. We might get creative as we move on, and we're not in Super Wild Card Weekend, but we'll keep it decently vanilla here. We'll go with the Jags. What do you guys think?
Let's go with the Oregon kid.
The Oregon kid?
Yeah, definitely not the Michigan one.
Well, okay, it's a 3-person race now.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have to be, let's not go with the Michigan one, Ohio State man. The 3 guys that I think are really up for this number 1 overall pick are the 3 players that you see there. Aiden Hutchinson, the pass rusher from Michigan. Kayvon Thibodeau, the pass rusher from Oregon. Or the left tackle for the Alabama Crimson Tide, Evan Neal. Do you guys have a leaning one way or the other?
Look,
what you think the Jacksonville Jaguars should go?
Well, like as a sicko like me, on Christmas Day,
Kids are unhappy.
I bet Evan Neal 9-1.
That was your Christmas present.
I said it last week on the podcast. On DraftKings Sportsbook right now, Aiden Hutchinson is plus 105 to be selected first. Kayvon Thibodeau 105 to be selected first. Evan Neal is plus 275 now.
What did you get it at?
9-1, so plus 900.
Whole family's doing Christmas carols.
Look, like that was my Christmas gift to myself. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars will take Evan Neal with the first pick because they're going to want to, protect, Trevor Lawrence. And they already have Josh Allen. Edge defenders, you can kind of get them in free agency a little bit as well. I know those two guys are great prospects, Thibodeau and Hutchinson, but let's go with Evan Neal.
I think we should. Let's do it. Let's pick Evan Neal here to start off this draft. Evan Neal going number 1 overall. I think you're going to see this a lot more the more mock drafts we get to. Detroit Lions. Who is the most Dan Campbell guy that he could pick? It's Aiden Hutchinson, is it not, Sam? I mean, I feel like it has to be.
He's in Michigan already. I know he didn't grow up a Lions fan, which
But now he's
like
in
that's why
Michigan
he's such a
made.
well-adjusted.
The Lions are a pass rusher away from contention. That's what everyone's been saying.
Oh, come on. What do you want him to pick
A number
here?
1 receiver. Look at the
We're not going to
Bengals.
give him an Ohio State receiver.
Not with that
They've got
attitude.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man.
Just don't, hold on.
We got Amon-Ra
We don't
St.
need that
Brown,
tone
everyone.
from you. We don't need it. I think it's going to be Aiden Hutchinson. What do you guys think?
Oh, I think it will be. But I think there's definitely a point to be made that, look,
Don't
we think
entertain
of edge
him.
rusher.
Do not entertain him.
We think edge rusher, we think tackle. Those are the safe picks at the top of the draft. Why do we not think in this pass-heavy era, cornerback, wide receiver? What are we waiting for?
I don't know. What do you think?
Take Hutchinson.
Okay, Eric
I mean, I would take Thibodeau too. Like that, to me, they're basically equal. But I would Hutchinson here. Bring him back.
I think
Get people happy about the Lions again.
Yeah. Hutchinson seems like a guy who could feast on some kneecaps. He does. A little salt and pepper on there, a little olive oil before you throw it on the grill.
Now Thibodeau, after we take Hutchinson here,
we'll go Hutchinson for the Lions.
Thibodeau is not particularly happy with where he's stepping in there. A coachless group right now in the Houston Texans.
No, it's
I don't
very
think
true.
Thibodeau spends 40 minutes before every game focusing on his little eye black design, though. So that's kind of why I would have taken him first over Hutchinson.
You are just a hater.
Yeah, I am.
Let's go Thibodeau.
you know
Let's go
what?
Thibodeau at 3.
Yeah,
here.
we'll go Thibodeau at 3.
And I think the next one's really interesting, right? Because the Jets have the 4th pick. They also have the Seahawks pick, which is I believe 10.
10.
There's something down there, but the Jets have 2 top 10 picks by virtue of the fact that they took a guy in the top 10 to play safety. And then they traded him to a mark in Seattle for 2 more first-round picks. But now here they're sitting with one of the better safety prospects that we've ever seen.
Would it be like rubbing salt in the wound, right?
It would be,
I'm gonna take
and to be honest,
of the first
and to be
round
honest with
picks.
you, you look at Derek Stingley, the junior, was the most valuable defensive player in college football the year that LSU won the title when he was a true freshman in 2019.
Yeah.
Obviously injuries and also just kind of a you're going to regress from that mark there.
Right.
The Jets could use a corner.
The Jets could definitely use a corner, and we'll take Derek Stingley here. I think that this is a good pick here at number 4, but I will say the Jets just don't often pick corner very high. So even though I think that this pick makes sense, I'm not so sure it happens because they also have trench needs. They could look in the trenches. And speaking of that, the other team in New York, the Giants, sitting here at number 5. I mean, I think they got to go offensive lineman. I'd be picking either George Karlaftis or Ike Ekwonu, one of those 2 guys. It's either an edge rusher or an offensive tackle. Do you guys have a vote?
Let's go to Linderbaum here, the center from Iowa. Let's hit the analysis.
They're not going to draft Linderbaum at number 5.
look at the
But I like where your
analysis
head's at because this dude's an absolute monster. You look at his PFF grades since 2019. I mean, he's just an absolute stud. There are going to be people who tell you that this is the highest graded center that they've had in years and years and years. Half a decade, whatever it is, however long they've been scouting. It's so hard to find a flaw in Tyler Linderbaum's game. Now, do you pick a center at number 5? Probably not. But whoever does get this dude, it's going to be very
This video of him, this is just actual analysis from me. Video of him pinning Tristan Wirfs in high school wrestling. This dude is a monster.
By the way, remember, we had this same discussion with Quentin Nelson, right? You can't take a guard that high, and he's been one of the most valuable offensive linemen.
Right.
Not guards,
right.
Offensive linemen since he's been
The
drafted.
hard part about picking a center or a guard this high is when you do, they immediately become one of the higher paid players at the position just by virtue of the way that the draft scale works.
And it's okay if they're good.
It's okay if they're good, but it's tricky because
like
one of the reasons you want to take premium positions this high is because you get basically the benefit of not having to pay them as much as some of the higher paid players.
Is there a rough line where you're okay with that? The Cowboys took Zach Martin around 15, I think.
Yeah, it drops off precipitously after that, and also the transition tag and all the tags and stuff, all the options and everything become cheaper after a certain amount, after a certain pick. So yeah, this is one where it's tricky. Linderbaum is an outlier, but maybe you want to go with somebody, one of the tackles.
I'm
later on.
gonna go with an executive decision. I'm actually gonna take George Karlaftis here at the pass rusher because New York has another pick at number 7, which is right there. It's strategic here. Carolina Panthers literally just sort offensive tackles. That's it. Don't even look at anybody else. Don't think about it. Don't get tempted. It doesn't matter. They only need offensive tackle. They need offensive line more than anything. Ike Ekwonu is still on the board. Already plays in NC State. A little bit of a homecoming
Actually, the
there.
opposite of his name as a pick, not an Icky pick. A very good pick.
Right. This is a really super bad joke that you just told there. But we're gonna go with Ike Ekwonu for the Carolina Panthers, and then here with the New York Giants. We go Tyler Linderbaum here for the Giants. We
I like
talked
it.
about
Billy
big
Price
game.
is
Let's
not
do it. Let's do it.
exactly
Let's go
the
Tyler
answer
Linderbaum
there.
here for the Giants. Falcons. Falcons is actually where I really like Kyle Hamilton. This is a spot that could be fantastic for them because they desperately need great safety play. That's what I think.
Well,
now, do they
DBs
also need other positions? Yes, but I think that if we're talking about realistic landing spots for Kyle Hamilton, I think this is probably the soonest that we're going to get it.
Didn't they not give up a pass over 40 yards all year?
Correct.
That was
crazy.
AJ
I mean, but if you have a
AJ
secondary
Terrell.
with, AJ Terrell and Kyle Hamilton, that's going to be like
Correct.
that's a secondary that's been pretty
Correct.
bad for years.
Yep.
How much longer are we doing the Matt Ryan thing, though? Because if we are, let's get another weapon. Calvin Ridley, we don't know what's going on.
This could be a wide receiver spot.
could be a wide receiver
Could be a
spot.
wide receiver spot.
Who would be your wide receiver of choice?
That you would
Yeah.
take. Yeah.
Honestly, okay, this pains me, but this Burks dude from Arkansas, he might check every single box.
He also has like some I don't mean to compare, but like stylistically has some Julio Jones to him.
I mean, he's a freak athletically. I don't think he moves like laterally, like flexibility, just like start and stop, left to right as well as Julio did, because he's an absolute alien in that regard.
Yeah.
But you know what? Because Ian went out on a limb, went outside of his comfort zone, and said Treylon Burks, the wide receiver from Arkansas.
Thanks, man.
Let's go Treylon Burks here. Let's get the Atlanta Falcons a receiving weapon that they desperately need. Denver Broncos. I think it's probably got to be a quarterback, right? I mean, like, they've got to heavily consider.
You could also look at the trade offers here, because I think if you're
This is
Denver, you might be able to trade back a little bit, maybe trade to 14. Maybe the Ravens want to come up and refill that roster a little bit. They're not a team that trades up a lot. They're analytically minded, but you can play the game here. And do a trade if you want to, because I think if you're one of those teams that has a quarterback, there's not really a benefit in taking one with your first pick, because there's like 4 or 5 of them that are kind of interchangeable. Styles make fights. You can get a value here by moving back. Denver's another team, by the way, that doesn't need any other sort of position at 9. Right? They just need a quarterback.
No, you're right.
So they're not the opportunity cost of trading back here is not so bad.
I like that argument, but let's look at quarterback. Let's kind of give Broncos fans a realistic look. I think Kenny Pickett, Matt Corral, Sam Howell, I think they're all within that conversation.
Next year. This is something my
I don't know. I think we should pick it.
I think we also should pick it. Yeah, let's go with Kenny Pickett here for number 9. Sam is shaking his head, which means we're doing a great job here. The New York Jets. They are back on the clock at number 10. This is a great spot, I think, for Charles Cross. If they can sit here and get themselves Derek Stingley at number 4 and Charles Cross at number 10, that's a home run kind of a draft for the New York Jets.
Offensive line would be Becton, Cross, Elijah Vera Tucker, Grant Van Rotten. I mean, they're pretty good.
Throw me in there. It doesn't matter. You know?
Alternatively, we were talking about Kyle Hamilton for the Jets with their first pick. They didn't pick him. They let it slip this far. I think you grab both a safety and a corner, and all of a sudden you actually have half of a viable secondary instead of the kindergarten group they had out there this year, which was gashed left, right, and center. So
it's not bad.
More Lamar
I don't hate
Jackson
it.
slant.
I don't know what their long-term safety outlook with the guys on their roster is.
Also, I am all on board of them rubbing that trade in Seattle's face by taking just one of the 2 picks and potentially upgrading the position.
Do we troll like that?
Let's do it. Let's
troll?
take Hamilton.
All right, we're going Hamilton. Derek Stingley Jr. and Kyle Hamilton there. All right, so I don't think
But
we have
he is
another
the
pick.
type of safety.
Oh, we do
that's
have.
more reasonable
We have a
to
Lions pick. We have a Lions pick at the end. We picked Aiden Hutchinson for them
we
at
got
the
the
very
Rams
top.
there at 27. That's their
Oh
pick.
man, who's a wide receiver? Who's a wide receiver that they could go with? Can we see wide receiver?
Olave is perfect for them.
Well, if he's left, I don't know if he's left. We're
gone.
looking at the tab. Jahan Dotson,
There
Chris
he is.
Olave.
There we go.
All right, Chris Olave.
Most
give it Chris
touchdowns in
Olave.
the history of the Ohio State University.
So there you go. When you do a mock draft over at PFF's mock draft simulator, you get to see the entire recap of what you did, no matter how many teams that you select. You can see the grades, you can see the team grades, you can see all that kind of stuff, full results, everything like that. So go check it out, guys. The PFF mock draft simulator, it's an awesome tool, and I've talked with Eric about some of the things that they're doing. It's only getting better. So start mastering it now, and when we start adding some new tools, some new looks to it, it's going to be bigger and better than ever. Let's get back to these super wild card previews. Let's talk about the Sunday games now. The 1 o'clock game, Philadelphia Eagles against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the interesting thing about this game, we've got Philly getting 8.5 in Tampa. I think most people would normally go, okay, Philly really can't light up a scoreboard that well. Let's take Tampa here, but hold your horses. Weather might play a factor in here. Not snow, not rain, but wind. Wind might be a major factor because in the forecast, we're getting gusts up to 20, 30 miles an hour during kickoff, and that's going to be big for, of course, any type of field switching with punting, any type of field goals with kicking, and of course, when you're throwing the ball, if you're trying to stretch it deep down the field, that's going to affect the passing game as well. Philly, it's a team that they like to run the football. This bodes well for them. Sam, is it enough for you to take Philly in the points in this game? What do you think about this matchup?
Like that, the weather threat for this game has been really interesting because that's been the driving force behind the line going down, right? The over/under has been consistently going down.
Yeah, so open at 49. It's now 45.5. That's a crazy move in the NFL, and it's almost never because of injuries or anything. It's predominantly because of the weather here.
But it hasn't shrunk the spread, right? It's stayed pretty.
9.5 and 8. The difference between 9.5 and 8.5 is not that much because not that many NFL games land on 9, right? So there's been change depending upon the book you're looking at. It could be 8.5, could be 9.5, could be 9, but it has not. Even though, like we'll talk about this in a sec, like the stylistic, it impacts Philly positively, stylistically.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's what's really interesting to me is that the thing that's been driving the line going down in terms of over/under, I would have thought would have moved it back towards Philadelphia significantly as well, because I think weather in any form only helps the Eagles, right? Because it's going to blunt that Tom Brady passing attack, which has been the thing that entire Bucs offense has been relying on. And okay, it now focuses everything on Philadelphia's run game, which is where they're going to need it to be anyway, right? It's the irresistible force against the immovable object. Philadelphia, #1 in the NFL on average yards before contact. So essentially, how much space you're blocking those running backs for. Tampa Bay's run defense, we know when they have Vita Vea out there, when they've got everybody healthy, they're one of the best run defenses in the NFL. But weather is going to slow their passing attack down. It's going to make it closer.
Well, and Tampa Bay, like that's the thing. Tampa Bay's offensive line has played great this year. Defensive line is the house. But Philadelphia, that's where they match up best. And, Vita Vea is an amazing football player, has earned that contract extension. But teams that have run outside of the interior against the Bucs have had some success this year.
Which is what they're going to do. Because, Jason Kelsey is not driving Vita Vea off the line of scrimmage.
Probably not.
Exactly. And the quarterback run stuff, like that makes it harder. Quarterback runs, and we talked about with Josh Allen, they're more efficient than just regular runs. And look, the wide receivers, we've had some injuries in Tampa Bay's secondary. Sean Murphy-Bunting has been questionable, missed some time this practice this week. I believe it was Carlton Davis missed some time in practice this week as well. And I know Philly's receivers, aren't quite as good, obviously, as like the average group. But Devontae Smith can get you, and Jalen Reagor, and obviously Quez Watkins. Those guys are not a terrible group. And Jalen Hurts has emerged quite well. So to me, my pick is Eagles plus 8.5. I also do like under, which is a different pick than I had at the beginning of the week, just because I think in normal weather conditions, this is an overplay. The Bucs this year have been the most successful team in league history for a team that's thrown the ball 65% or more in terms of win percentage. Like, if that goes away, it hurt. I mean, it's a kryptonite for this team, I think.
I stopped listening after you said the Bucs have been the most successful team in league history. That's where it stopped. that's where I chose to stop listening.
You might have missed an important part of information.
No. It's, I feel like
details.
I feel like I got what I needed to get there.
It's funny. We saw this matchup earlier in the year, and then next week the Eagles lost to the Raiders. And then after that was when they really changed their offense because they were trying to throw the ball a little bit more often to start the year, and then they just became the most run-heavy offense in the entire league. And the results really have been great. League-high 15 games with at least 100 rushing yards. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay in the first couple weeks of the year looked like a complete world-beating defense stopping the run. The Patriots had -1 rushing yards against these guys, but you look at them really over the second half of the year. I think losing Levante David, we'll see if he's back, has been a big part of this, but only the Lions have posted the worst rate on the season of just missed tackles. And as good as the Bucs are yards before contact, they are 27th in yards per carry allowed after contact. So it does seem like, you always say styles make fights. the Eagles, might have what it
It's a
takes.
bad matchup for the Bucs,
really
even though
is.
I think they'll still win, but it's a bad matchup.
Would it bum you out to learn, Trevor, that the Bucs still have the worst win percentage in NFL history as a franchise?
Oh no, you can't hurt me.
Oh, okay.
No,
Okay.
the Bucs have Tom Brady now. You can't hurt me.
Gotcha,
You
gotcha.
can't hurt me.
Two Super Bowls puts them, above league median?
Which is hilarious. No, it was funny when I looked that up a couple of years ago. I was like, oh, I wonder what team in the NFL is the worst win percentage. Oh, it's Tampa. Great. And then I was like, wow, that number is really low. And I looked it up in NHL history, MLB history, NBA history. Tampa's lower than all of them.
That was a question in our podcast trivia. That we
Brady's got to play till 50 to sort of curb all that.
Is the podcast trivia up?
I don't know. Is it? Is it up?
I don't know if it's up yet, but Tuesday. Actually, I just heard in my ear that it's coming out Tuesday. Go listen to that because that's gonna be a fun podcast to listen to. San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys. The next game that we want to preview here. America's game, right? History. Your dad's game, if you will, right? Historic. San Francisco 49ers, historic. Dallas Cowboys. So much between these two teams, and this is a really unique matchup, and it's unique because of the San Francisco 49ers. If you ask NFC fans of any team, hey, who do I want to, who should my team want to play the least? I think the number one vote would have been for San Francisco, just because they could have ended up anywhere. And you got Deebo Samuel, you've got George Kittle. What are you doing with these two guys? They can line up anywhere at any given time. They're giving any defense fits. Sam, what do you think about this matchup here?
Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting to a lot of people. It's Montana versus those Cowboys, and it was Steve Young, Troy Aikman, and then there's a whole generation of people to whom that means nothing. And this is
Terrell
just
Owens versus George Teague.
This is just another game, and not actually one of the best ones of the weekend to these young guys who just don't care about that history. But I think to me, stylistically, this is such an interesting game because the 49ers offense is all about just being different to everybody else, right? The scheme is the most unique in the NFL in terms of how they deploy it. Every one of the players within it is a unique, weird athlete. Deebo Samuel, there's nobody you have on the scout team that does what he does, right? Who can line up in the backfield, run like a running back, but also do the same thing deep down the field on pass attempts. George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, Brandon Ayuk is a weird type of receiver as well. Their entire offense is just staffed with these bizarre athletes that you can't match up with and you don't see until you're playing them, at which point it's kind of too late to react. So seeing how they deploy those guys, Dallas has their own, unique hybrid weapon of Micah Parsons that's causing problems. Just seeing how that matches up is going to be such an interesting battle.
This 49ers offense, like the high school hype man that got memed, like Brandon Ayuk, dog, Deebo Samuel, dog, Elijah Mitchell, dog. It's one guy after another. And I think it's easy enough to see Shanahan in the run game having success against the Cowboys. We've seen them, I believe, give up at least 100 rushing yards, 11 of their last 12 games. But it's this passing game, and I know it's not the sexiest thing in the world. Jimmy G, 30th in average target depth on the year, but they're second in yards per attempt, first in explosive pass play rate. I mean, we don't need to make this entire conversation around Trayvon Diggs and stuff, but I think we realize the Cowboys also, efficiency-wise, maybe not the best pass defense in the world. That's my thing, because even if the Cowboys are able to play their game and get up through the pass or on the ground, I'm just not sure really they can slow down the 49ers.
Yeah, tomorrow Ben Brown and I are going to be live streaming this. Is from a betting perspective. We've placed a few pregame bets. One of the bets that I took pregame was the Niners plus 145 on the money line. I don't know if the points matter in this game. As you saw up there, the total is the highest of all the weekend. This is going, and when you have high totals, each of the points, 1, 2, and 3 are worth less because the game spreads out a little bit more. I think this game is either going to be a blowout on Dallas's end, where Trayvon Diggs picks off Jimmy G a couple times, or I think more likely an offense where Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Brandon Ayuk combined for over 3,100 yards receiving this year. Deebo Samuel over 10 yards after the catch per catch. I think that's going to be, sort of what lights up the scoreboard in this one. And if you follow us along during that live stream, we'll be betting props and live props and all that kind of cool stuff.
So you guys are going to be live streaming the two of you watching the game
and betting the game.
Oh wow, that's dangerous. That's a true look behind the curtain into what's going on in your brain. Because you do that on Sunday. Something
PFF
will happen.
channel will be calling in. It'll be fun. It'll be a live look into my degenerate brain for
Something will happen.
Dude, you're a moderator for
on
this.
a Sunday.
We've been there.
Right. I was just about to say, normally on Sundays when we have the whole Sunday slate, something will happen. And I'll just use this as an example. The Rams will, let's say the Rams we're playing the Cardinals. The Rams will score a touchdown, and the first thing that Eric says is, oh, Cardinals live bet looks juicy. And he'll just go the complete opposite direction with it. So I can't wait to watch that live stream. Maybe I'll have to call into that one.
We'd love to have you. Yeah,
so we can get in on the show there. I do want to talk about some All-Pro honors because the NFL announced their All-Pro awards, and I want to run down who the NFL gave the All-Pro honors to and see if we have some snubs. Sam, you and I recently went through PFF's kind of All-Pro honors when we had our award show earlier this week. So for the All-Pro list, Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, Jonathan Taylor at running back, Mark Andrews at tight end. Got Cooper Kupp, Deebo Samuel, and Devontae Adams as the wide receivers. No surprise there. Trent Williams at left tackle, Tristan Wirfs at right tackle, Joel Bitonio, Zach Martin, and Jason Kelsey. A lot of damn good names on that list. But I'll go to Sam first. What do you think about the list as they put it out there? And then anybody you really want to get to that was omitted from that list?
Yeah, it's funny. When we were doing All-Pro years ago, when PFF was much smaller and we were still a kind of startup company, the All-Pro would be terrible, and we could rail against it consistently. Right? I look at these idiots putting these terrible players in All-Pro based off name recognition, a few fancy stats, but as PFF gets bigger, you can see the influence we have on the All-Pro selections. Like Joel Bitonio is not making an All-Pro team this year without PFF and him being effectively the best graded guard or the best graded pass blocking guard, best graded after Zach Martin all season long. Joel Bitonio is in the All-Pro team because PFF exists and sort of puts that out there. And it's getting harder and harder to find really bad picks on the All-Pro team and rail against them. I think actually on offense in particular, they pretty much nailed it.
There are some players who are on here that are deserving, but maybe there are other players who are more deserving. Like Creed Humphrey at center. I think Creed is probably better, has had a better year than Jason Kelsey, but it's hard to spit on Jason Kelsey's season. Right. You could make it a case that Justin Jefferson earned the third wide receiver role, but Deebo Samuel, in many ways had a better season than him. And so
we need an offensive weapon spot. Deebo first team, CPAT second team.
I was wondering how you were going to get Cordero Patterson
even
into
Tom Brady,
this conversation.
Tom Brady has a case over Aaron Rodgers, but Aaron Rodgers deserves it too. Right. So
that's exactly what we do in the PFF. We have that flex position, and number one and number two, Deebo and Cordero Patterson.
I've always liked it. I don't care what anyone says.
So there is another debate that is kind of like that on the defensive side of things, and it's at edge rusher. Because when you look at the All-Pro edge defensive list, the edge rushers that they chose, T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, no Max Crosby on that list. We then have Aaron Donald, Cam Hayward at interior defensive lineman, Darius Leonard, Micah Parsons, Devondre Campbell at linebacker, Trayvon Diggs, looking at you, Sam, and Jalen Ramsey at corner, and then Kevin Byard and Jordan Poyer rounding out the safeties. Sam, anybody on this list that you would like to talk about, or anyone that got omitted?
Well, I've been doxxed twice this week for articulating that Myles Garrett deserves to be there ahead of T.J. Watt, and in fact Max Crosby as well. So I'm going to let somebody else take that one.
Okay, anybody else want to get doxxed?
But Trayvon Diggs. I think Trayvon Diggs has not been as good this year as A.J. Terrell, despite the interceptions. And that's the key, right? When you try and explain why, we're not trying to take away the interceptions from him. We're not saying that they don't count or that they're not valuable. The point is that even with 11 interceptions, the amount he gets beaten is so much that it offsets so much of that. And you see that in PFF WAR, where he isn't the most valuable cornerback. Like the 11 interceptions are incredibly valuable plays, but he gets beaten so much that it offsets a ton of that. Whereas A.J. Terrell basically does not get beaten. He's given up less on the season than individual cornerbacks have given up in a single game this season.
To be fair, Terrell isn't moving around with anyone. That's why the Falcons' passing defense is still not that great, because you can go put your worst wide receiver across from Terrell, cancel them out the whole game. Yeah, Diggs. I guess my only beef with the Diggs thing is quit comparing him to Jameis Winston, because if Jameis threw 60 touchdowns one year, that's what we're looking at with Diggs having all these interceptions. So that's my only beef there. I think in the All-Pro team, he was in over Ramsey. Let's not get too carried away, but this doesn't need to be a Diggs is amazing or he's a complete piece of shit. We can meet somewhere in the middle, and I think it's higher towards him being very good.
My favorite.
I thought that's what a grading scale was. It would just click one of these boxes. Amazing, piece of shit. Which one?
My favorite selection on this defense is Cameron Hayward, and here's my take, because I'm gonna be the one that sort of alleviates Sam from some of the criticism. I think Cam Hayward's been as good of a player this year as T.J. Watt. I think he's been equally effective.
Well,
for that defense.
Whether you want to put it up against that argument or whatever, Cam Hayward is like a fine wine.
Yeah.
The dude has had an elite PFF grade the last 4 years, and he is now, I think he's almost 33. So like 29, 30, 31, 32. This dude is having the best years of his career right now. He is blossoming in his veteran age, and it's just, it's something to
like
know for sure.
he's very much, you can make a case for him to be the best player on that defense. And, I think for the edge position, I actually think this, if you want to hate PFF's choice of having Garrett and Crosby, I think this is the better alternative. I think Crosby, he had the big numbers, but like from an efficiency standpoint, the player to put in that place, if you want to make Watt the first team All-Pro, is Crosby, because I think Garrett, from like a beating blockers perspective and an efficiency perspective, he's been the best edge in football this year.
If you guys want to check out all of the premium stats that went into our All-Pro rankings and the things that we were talking about there, go check it out over at PFF.com. We've got 2 different subscription models that you guys can see, and if you want all of those premium stats, you can do so with a PFF Elite subscription. So we are moving on to the Steelers and the Chiefs. Speaking of, good transition there. You don't have to talk about TJ Watt if you don't want to. Yeah, it was a super transition there. You don't have to talk about TJ Watt, but we do want your thoughts on this game. Steelers getting 12.5 points in a wildcard playoff game against Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City Chiefs. Do they keep it within 12.5?
I don't think so. Like, we've seen this game already. It happened a few weeks ago, and it was miserable for Pittsburgh. Like, the things you have to do mentally to conjure up a way where they keep this close. The Steelers aren't even, they weren't expecting to be here. We were writing Big Ben's eulogy. They were doing the sort of lap of honor, the polite applause as he wound down his career and took a seat on the couch for the rest of the next 10 years. And then all of a sudden it's like, what? We made the playoffs? We have to come back and do this again? And it's against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs? What is this?
Can I just say something really quick? There's so many people who, look, we've all made our Big Ben jokes this year. I even said that last week was Big Ben's last game of his career, and the universe looked at me, pointed at me, and laughed because it gave him another game. But when Big Ben was talking to the media this week, and he was like, yeah, we're not supposed to win this game. He's clearly being sarcastic, people. Like, that was one of those things that was, it just made me put down my phone immediately because people could, like, Ben Roethlisberger is not saying, yeah, we're not going to win. We have no chance.
He's
doing it sarcastically.
Yeah.
He's saying that nobody gives them a chance. He's saying, oh, nobody thinks we're going to win, so why not go out there and have fun? Use your brain. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
go ahead, Eric.
He's using something said to him to like sort of as a galvanizing thing. I would say there's 2 ways that the Steelers can win this game. I think there's only 2. Orlando Brown, right, who injured a calf in the game we went to at Cincinnati, missed that game, played last week, self-described as an unathletic tackle. He's facing one of the most athletic players in the league in TJ Watt.
Yep.
TJ Watt could ruin this game.
Yep.
The other one is
a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah. There's another one where you have Ray McLeod, you have Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson against a Chiefs secondary that has struggled in recent weeks to play man coverage and to tackle people. If Big Ben gets that thing out of his hands as fast as humanly possible, and to those players, and the Chiefs struggle tackling the way they have the last 2 weeks, this can be an issue. Be that as it may, my pick for this game is under 46. I think this game stays under. I think Big Ben goes quietly into the night. It's not another one of his like playoff losses where he's 47 of 63 for 485 yards and 5 picks. It's more of that game that he had against Cleveland the other day.
That's the thing. Like the last few games, they've kind of been playoff games for Pittsburgh already. It's not like this is the first time he gets a chance to turn it on and go down swinging. The last few games have all been like this, and in the last 4 weeks, he's averaged 4.5 yards per attempt. Like he has gone out with a whimper, not a roar, do not go quietly into the night type of deal. The only way, to me, that this game stays close is if the turnover-worthy plays, the throws that Mahomes is still pitching to defenders, get caught. He has had 7 games this year with multiple turnover-worthy plays, including both of the last 2. He's gotten away with them a lot late in the season, whereas earlier in the season he was catching the bad end of that luck. Like if the Steelers turn the ball over a couple of times because Mahomes is pitching the ball to their defense, to Minka, to whoever, that's how they can keep it close. Beyond that, like the Chiefs are just so much better. And like if you're Ben Roethlisberger, when you were watching that game, when you were watching Mahomes do his thing the last time you played, like you're not in the same league as that anymore.
I think everyone, if you've watched the Pittsburgh game this year, you're pretty well aware about the version of Big Ben we're getting these days. But this entire Pittsburgh team has really just been below average all year. Even at pressuring the quarterback. They're 20th with TJ Watt, with Cam Hayward. They are not an above average defense at even pressuring the quarterback. And we've seen Dalvin Cook and people just go absolutely nuts. They're the league's worst defense in yards before carry allowed. So, Eric, I hear you with there are technically possibilities, I guess, for the Steelers to come out and win this game. But even then, man, I feel like we just have one kind of qualifier after another because there just isn't really a strength on this entire Pittsburgh football team. They had a point differential of minus 55 this year. That's 12th in the AFC. Chiefs are at plus 16, 5th. Come on.
Last game we're talking about, rubber match between the Cardinals and the Rams. This is another round 3 like it was for the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills. I love when divisional matchups become wild card matchups because you have no idea what's going to happen in this game. I think that if you looked at things on paper, the Rams would check a lot of boxes, even with a struggling Matthew Stafford. But it's a divisional game. It's two rosters that know each other so well, and there's so much that's up in the air. So for this Super Monday matchup, Sam, where would you be leaning in this one?
The thing is, I've lost faith in both of these teams.
Not a good place to be.
Matthew Stafford has reverted fully into Detroit Lions Matthew Stafford. He's the same guy right now. His turnover-worthy play rate this year is actually higher than his career baseline in Detroit. He's pitching the ball to the defense with regular abandon, making a ton of mistakes. He does still have that fourth quarter magic, but the question is, how much trouble are you going to be in by the time you turn it on in the fourth quarter? And then Arizona, just at the moment everyone bought in, right? They were doing some really great things, beating teams, weathering injuries, winning games without Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. Just as you buy in, they start to drop some games and look miserable. And they're now facing Aaron Donald, who last time they played racked up 14 pressures.
Arizona this year is 6-0 straight up as an underdog. 6-0 and winning the game this year as an underdog. But then that is coupled with the fact that they have 3 losses the last 4 games against non-playoff teams. The one team they did go, they go on the road as 6.5-point dogs and beat Dallas. This is a really weird game. I forgot to slip our executive producer Ty $100 to replay the clip from last week where I said they'd be the same team with and without Goff and Stafford. That's how I feel in this one. And so this is a game where
it was wrong then. By the way, it's still wrong now.
I don't know. Who led the league in interceptions this year?
41 passing touchdowns means something, right?
Stafford. The Rams are an interesting team because they set out and they accomplished what they set out to. 3 of the top 6 most valuable players in the NFL this year who are non-quarterbacks play for the Rams. Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald, and Jalen Ramsey. That's it. They're just they have weaker links as you further go down the roster. Arizona's maybe a little bit more evenly distributed there. You have 2 coaches. I think, you obviously give the edge to McVay. But Stafford, I can't lay points with Stafford in the playoffs. He has yet to win a playoff game. Whoever wins the playoff game as a quarterback in this one, it'll be there first. And so for that, I'm taking the Cardinals plus the points.
Yeah, man, when you look at the Rams right now, I'd love to bet on the Rams because I think they could be a lot of fun. But over the last 4 weeks, the only quarterback worse in PFF grade that made the playoffs is Mac Jones, and it's a rookie. For as good as Mac Jones is playing for a rookie, he's still a rookie. And so Matthew Stafford has just been terrible, turning the ball over, and not just turning the ball over in his own territory, super dangerous throws. I mean, this is a high ceiling kind of a team that I think we've waited and we've wanted to hit that ceiling, and they just, not only do they not seem close to the ceiling, they seem maybe further away from it than they ever have been all season right now.
Their fastball's gone. The deep ball hasn't been there for him. I mean, you look at it, weeks 1 through 7, Stafford had 1 turnover-worthy play on passes thrown at least 20 yards downfield. Weeks 8 through 18, he's had 9. He had 4 games with at least 3 deep completions in weeks 1 through 7. He's only had 2 such games in the last, 3 months. So, I understand as a whole Stafford on the season maybe isn't that much different than Jared Goff, but I think we've seen there can be some great highs. There can be some great highs from his passing game. The problem is we haven't seen him in quite some time.
All right, I got to get Kendall's take on all of these games because we just ran through them, and I got to know what her big upset is, whether the chat's been in on a big upset or what's been. You got any news and actives? Anything for us?
Yeah, I'll start with inactive. perspectives, there's really no news there besides Kingsbury being very non-committal about Watt and Connor coming back, so that's still in question.
Okay.
But Juju Smith-Schuster has been activated off IR, and he is expected to play tomorrow against the Chiefs. I don't know if that moves anything on your guys' radar.
Last game of the
at
year.
all.
Can't hold anything back.
Last game of the year, can't hold anything back. Do you have like a super dog or anything? Cardinals, Niners, Raiders?
I said Raiders before, and we talked with Ben on the PFF betting podcast. We also really like the 49ers at +3. That's just got to be the one.
49ers are very public dog this week, and so like you got to be a little bit worried. This
Right.
does kind of remind me a little bit of Michigan versus Georgia, where everybody loved Michigan and the number didn't move a bit because there are some smart people also betting Georgia in that game. There are smart people that are still betting Dallas in this game, so just buyer beware. If you want to back with me and Kendall and everybody and take the 49ers, just know there are other people that are betting the Cowboys, and it's moving the line that way.
The other thing to remember is that this year has been insane, right? There have been games every week that make no freaking sense.
Yeah.
There was zero logical reason last week why the Jags should beat the Colts, other than it happens, right? The Jags beat the Bills earlier this year.
Wait, we've only thrown one stray at Carson Wentz. That is the reason. That is the reason why that game happened.
There's a bunch of these games throughout this season where you even reverse engineering it. You can't come up with a good reason why it happened. Pittsburgh could beat Kansas City for no other reason than it makes no sense.
The content would be incredible. All right, we've got Darius Butler on the line. We're going to get his take on all of these wild card games, including whether or not he believes Pittsburgh has a chance to be the crazy game of the weekend. Before we get to that, got to remind people that Pristine Auction is your go-to place for signed sports memorabilia. It's all auction-style stuff. So whether it's a certain team, a certain player, whatever you're looking for, these auctions could start at just $1. If you use the promo code PFF when you sign up, you'll get $10 off whatever the first auction is that you win, which if you're already getting a steal on the price, then getting $10 off it, that's a pretty great deal. Check it out over pristineauction.com. All right, now time to bring in Darius Butler to the show. Had to bring Darius Butler in, of course, because it is Wild Card Weekend. We're going to get his thoughts on every single playoff game. We're not just breaking down one of them. Darius, it would be a disservice to our viewers if we didn't get your thoughts on every single one of these Wild Card games. It would. But unfortunately, before we get to the games, Eric told me I had to bring this up. Who was your dog of the day last week? Who was it? It was
Eric?
the cat. It was the Cats. He had the Jacksonville Jaguars as his dog of the day. And Darius, I want to say congrats on picking it, knowing that the Jaguars were going to show up. But that might be a little bit of a backhanded compliment there because your Colts are no longer in the playoffs now because of it.
Yeah, it sucks, man. I guess the best team to miss the playoffs, man. I expect it was obviously a huge line, 15.5, I think. I expect the Jags to cover. I didn't, in my wildest imagination, expect them to actually win that game. No, and they did. And then obviously open up a bunch of drama for that Sunday night football game. But that was bad, man. That hurt, still stings for all the Coach Nation. But, hopefully we'll be back and better next year.
And so, I mean, like, it was a fantastic season for the Colts, right? We were talking about Frank Reich as potential coach of the year, everything like that. Gut feeling, I know it's one game, but gut feeling, Darius, do you think it's still Carson Wentz who's the quarterback for the Colts next year? I won't fully hold you to this, but I just
really for us it was two games. It was the Raiders game at home.
That's true. Yeah.
And then it was the Jaguars game, and it came after the game that a lot of us didn't expect to win out there in Arizona. So it was really a heart-wrenching end of the season. I don't know if there will be a better option for the Colts. Maybe you go and make a run at one of these, great quarterbacks that could potentially be on the market with, Rodgers or Russell, somebody like that. But outside of that, I think we're going to be stuck with Carson for another year at least. And I do say stuck with Carson because I don't think I think right now he will be the thing that will hold that team back from making a real run. And it wasn't just on Carson. We got dominated on both sides of the line of scrimmage. We didn't make plays on defense. Trevor Lawrence looked like how a bunch of people expected him to look all season. He actually looked that way week 18. So it definitely wasn't all on Carson. But you can't, make a real run at the championship without a quarterback that can be special, that can be dynamic for stretches. And I just don't see that with Carson right now. Hopefully I'm proven wrong, but I don't see it right now.
All right, let's get into some of these wild card matchups. First one.
Yeah, let's do it.
Las Vegas Raiders versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati, the city here in Cincinnati where we currently are.
It's electric.
Jumping. The bars are to capacity. The people are ready for a playoff win, but so are Raiders fans too. I know Raiders fans are very ready for this game as well. Darius, what do you think about this one? What do you think about the matchup? Who do you think is going to win in this? I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the playoffs, but to kick it off with this game, two quarterbacks making their playoff debuts. I'm excited. I went back and watched the first time they matched up earlier this year, and obviously you look at the score, I think it was 32-13, but that game was a lot closer when you actually watch it. And the Raiders, those guys get after you up front. Burrow, if you have one chink in his armor, he takes a lot of hits and sacks. So I think I'm going to go with the Raiders to actually cover at least this game. So this will be one of my dogs of the weekend. But I'm excited for this game. I think it'll be a close one. Bengals may eke it out, but I got the Raiders definitely covering that 5.5 line.
Yeah, if you like Darius's pick, which I think a lot of people do, make sure that you wait until right before kickoff. That number opened 6.5, got to 5 flat. Now it's trending back to 6. I think people are pouring in on the Bengals late in this process. So if you like Darius's pick of the Raiders, just wait until kickoff. You might be able to get a 6.5 or 7, from what the markets look like. Yeah, we talked about this game already, how it might be a little bit closer than we think. But yeah, I mean, if you could get the most points for the Raiders, it kind of looks like that one of those games, the matchups, on paper at least, favor the Raiders, keeping it close. Maybe not winning, maybe keeping it close, but I think you're right. I think a lot of people are probably betting on the Bengals because they want to back Joe Burrow. That emotional money going to Burrow, they want to see him win this game. I think that's well, the other thing is we talked about this earlier in the show, but like the Raiders have just come off a full overtime game and have to play the first wild card game on the Saturday following, and the Bengals last week rested people. So I think people are buying into that narrative too a little bit, but I agree, I think it's a little bit overblown. It's baked into the number, and if it's overvalued, go with Darius there and take the Raiders. New England and Buffalo, the rubber match here. You get a divisional game in the playoffs on Wild Card weekend. I mean, I think that we've got a couple of these here with Buffalo and New England, and then with Arizona and the Rams as well. We'll talk about that one in a second, but man, New England and Buffalo, these two teams just straight up do not like each other. This is both of the times they played, it felt like, New England was simply in Buffalo's way, but then it looked like they almost spoiled the division for them. And so I think there's no love lost between these two teams. What do you think happens here in the playoffs for Game 3, Darius? I think Buffalo wins. The road team, the road team has won, I think, both of the previous matchups, but I think the home team and Buffalo win this one. It'll be cold. Josh Allen hasn't been great, Nicole, in his career, but Mac Jones hasn't either. And he struggled. He hit a rookie wall late. Last time these teams matched up, he didn't play well. Josh Allen did. And when you get those second reaction plays that Josh Allen can make, when you get him off his spots, I mean, he's dynamic. And as a defender, that's the worst thing you want to face in any game, especially the playoffs. And Mac Jones on the other side, he just doesn't have that. They pressured him early last time they played. And if you can get after him, mix it up in the back end and get him off his spot, quote unquote, it's a recipe for success for that Buffalo defense. A lot of great coaches in this game too. Daboll, Frazier, Josh, Mayo, Belichick, just so many good coaches. So this will be a well-played game. But I got the Buffalo Bills winning and covering. Just too dynamic on offense. Yeah, speaking of coaches, the guy that drafted Darius, this is the first time. Darius, would you be surprised to know, first time Bill Belichick is playing a road game in the wild card round of the playoffs. Ever? Sheesh. Wow. Whoa. So that's crazy. He's been a wild card playoff game. This is just the second time he's been a wild card team. But in 1994, when he was coaching the Cleveland Browns, the 4th seed got to host a playoff game, and he beat Bill Parcells, his mentor, at home back then when there were only 3 divisions. The 4th team got to host one, but he's never. This is the second time he's been a wild card. This is the first time he's gone on the road in the first round of the playoffs. That is crazy. And I was a part of that loss, wild card loss against the Ravens. First and second year. Sorry, Bill. That Ray Rice run, was that the first play of the game? Yeah. Crazy times. So I want to bring this up because I thought it was very entertaining. Mina Kimes from ESPN tweeted earlier this week that the secret to unlocking the full potential of Josh Allen is for Buffalo to build a dome so they don't have to play outside. Sam, do you believe in the Buffalo home field advantage with no dome, or do you think they need one here to get the most out of Josh Allen?
I get what she's saying, in that Josh Allen's talents makes every quarterback is better in a dome.
Perfect
So if
conditions,
you want-
right.
If you want the quarterback to play at his best, you want him indoors where weather isn't a factor. But Josh Allen in particular, I think, becomes more the advantage of him over most quarterbacks, I think, is more exaggerated in bad weather because he has an arm to cut through bad wind. He becomes a threat on the ground when the conditions are bad, and he can rush the ball. I think there's no conditions you can create weather-wise where he doesn't become a greater threat than the opposition quarterback.
I don't necessarily agree with that, only because of his style of play. Like the running thing helps for sure. Like in the passing game, though, weather has been shown to exacerbate differences the further you throw downfield. So if he plays in a playoff game in the cold against a quarterback who is more of a dink and dunk, like not a dink and dunk, but more of an underneath guy, say like Brady or somebody like, especially historically with New England, I think that the differences with Brady in like a weather situation like that are going to be smaller than the differences with Allen. Not because Allen's worse, but it's because of what Allen chooses to do, which is throw the ball downfield. And those curves get like, perfect weather, bad weather, they sort of separate as you sort of get further out.
That's fair.
And so it's more of a styles thing. I agree from a talent perspective. If everybody had to throw Josh Allen's passes, then Josh is the best of those guys.
Sure.
But the passes he chooses to throw are harder to complete in bad weather.
Sure. All right. Eagles, Bucks. I want to get to this one here. This is another one where weather could be a factor. It doesn't look like it's going to rain as far as when I checked the weather app last, but it looks like we're going to get some decent wind in this one, right? I mean, we're talking gusts of up to 20, 30 miles an hour. We've got a front rolling through Tampa, and so Eagles favored by 8.5. Was that what the number was?
Yeah, it opened at 9.5. It's now 8.5. The total on this game, so we talked about this on George and my podcast on Sunday night. Total opened at 49. It actually looked like a good over, right? Because, the Eagles don't have a great defense. They've also had a pretty good offense over the stretch. And obviously, as you know, Trey, Tampa Bay has a great offense. Now the total's at 46. It's gone down about 3 points. Mm-hmm. And our model's actually like under in that game because of the wind. Wind is really the big issue when you think about totals. Once it gets above 15 miles per hour or so, it's hard to complete passes. And I also think it favors the Eagles, right? Like this is the one place where you take Tom Brady's Bucks, and we talked about this earlier, first team in league history to win over 70% of their games while throwing the ball 65% of the time or more. They have to play left-handed in this one. That's going to be a tough one.
What do you think? What do you think, Darius?
I mean, I got the Bucks winning. I'm scared with that number. I know it's an 8.5. The last I checked, that number does scare me, but I got them winning for sure. I've been going back and forth with the cover. I don't have a solid one, but I would take that under as well. I would definitely take that under as well. And Philly, nobody expected Philly to be here, so they're going to go out there. They're going to play free, but this is the day they're making their debut with Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position and at the head coach position with Nick Sirianni. So it's a lot of, new experiences that the playoffs will bring. And on the other side, you got, wily vets with Brady, BA, and every coordinator that's already made a Super Bowl run. So a lot of experience and the talents on Tampa's side. You got some weather. Philly does have a run game, and they have an opportunistic defense that, they can get some tip passes or something like that with a lot of different pass catchers that will be in and out of there with Tampa. So that's what's kind of scaring me with this line. But I got Tampa winning. Not so sure about the cover, though.
Tampa getting a lot healthier as of late. Levante David's hopefully going to be back. They got Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaq Barrett, all these guys back as well. They're obviously not going to have Antonio Brown. They don't have Chris Godwin. But Bucks, better bet to repeat or not repeat? What do you think?
I would say not repeat. If they had home field advantage, if they could have somehow, some way got that 1 seed, it would probably been my bet in favor. But I said probably 5-6 weeks ago, whichever team in the NFC got the 1 seed and got home field advantage throughout, that's probably who I would go with. If San Fran, we'll get to the game, but if San Fran can upset Dallas and get up there to Green Bay, that could probably knock that off. But I got Green Bay getting to the Super Bowl, so I would say no repeat this year.
Brady is a winning Lambeau guy.
I was gonna say Brady is a winning Lambeau guy. So you got to put him, at least you got to give him a chance.
Garoppolo's also beaten, that was in San Fran, but Garoppolo's also beaten the LaFleur 49ers en route to a Super Bowl.
Kevin King won't be out there.
So
I feel like if you're a quarterback and you throw fewer than 10 passes, like
you should not get the win. I think you should get a QB win. I don't know. leadership, all the intangibles. All the
Mac Jones gets the QB win for his 3
I don't know.
pass attempt game
We look about
earlier.
baseball. If a guy comes out of the bullpen, throws one pitch, gets a double play, comes out of the game, he gets a dub.
That is true. That is true. That is true. That is one of the dumbest stats in sports, giving a pitcher a win just because of the situation. If he threw like 5 pitches and he gets, that's neither here nor there. All right, speaking of the 49ers, this is a good transition here because a lot of teams did not want to face the San Francisco 49ers. They got such unique weapons. We already talked about it earlier on the show. Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, they're such a tough matchup for everybody. Darius, how do you think they match up with the high-powered Dallas Cowboys? What do you think about this game here?
Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys, they beat up on some bad teams, but when they play some good teams, they just weren't on the same page, it looked like offensively, where I would think one of their strengths would lie in the receivers from Dak. Him and Coop hasn't been on the same page. Gallup obviously went down. So I think the Niners will actually match up decent. If they had a weak spot on their defense, it will be at the cornerback position. But they got guys that can get after them up front. And then when San Fran has the ball, the strength of that Cowboys defense is getting after the passer. But obviously San Fran like to run it. They like to mix it up, a lot of pre-snap motions and jet motions, jet sweeps.
Right.
So it's going to really come down to those Cowboys edge defenders. Can the corners tackle? Will they tackle? That'll be a big question. So I think I like the San Francisco 49ers to not only cover but win this game. And I trust Jimmy G a little more than Dak in this game too.
Ooh, wow. A little spicy ending there to that little preview. Okay, let's go rapid fire with these last two before we get people out of here to watch these wild card games. Pittsburgh, Kansas City. I'm not going to ask if you have Pittsburgh winning this game, but
Kansas City wins. Kansas City covers.
Okay, that's all right. That's good enough. That's basically all I was going to ask.
Darius's pick ends as fast as Big Ben's career Sunday.
Okay, all right. Arizona and Los Angeles. This is another game that I said it's round 3 for these teams. 2 divisional teams meeting up here in the wild card round. What do we think about this? I mean, at one point, the Los Angeles Rams looked like they were the Super Bowl contender, and as of late, Matthew Stafford kind of looks anything but. Do you have faith in the Rams and Stafford still, or are you rolling with the Arizona Cardinals here? What do you think?
Honestly, I don't have faith in either one of these teams, quarterbacks. But I got a little more faith in Arizona for some reason. I don't know, but I watched the meltdown that the Rams had last week against the Niners, and just poor execution in overtime when they had a chance to go down and kick a field goal, which was surprising with McVay. The interior offensive line gets beat up. I don't trust Stafford down the stretch. Terrible interception to throw to end the game. And then when they got the ball back with 2 minutes left, they didn't even attempt to get a first down with a quarterback like Stafford and an offense like that. A lot of head scratchers. So I'm actually going with the Cardinals to win this game. Another underdog, I think 3.5 points, but I got them to win outright.
If Darius is right, it's going to be one hell of a weekend. We're going to have good games and a lot of upsets and everything, but that's what the playoffs are all about. Kendall, do you have any upsets that you are riding on? The 49ers, the Cardinals, the Eagles, anything?
No, I talked to Ben at our podcast, and I think the only upset that we kind of agreed on maybe could be today with the Raiders, but that was the one that we were kind of interested in.
Don't say that.
I know, I'm sorry. We also should have gone to the game. We should have been like Eric and gone to the game, but here we are. We're not going, so now I have FOMO.
Wait, Eric, are you still going?
Got time?
Eric's still going?
Yeah,
He's still getting out of here?
That's what I'm saying.
I'll check
We should have gone.
The second we end this show, Eric is just he's gonna have a cloud of dust like a cartoon. So all right, let's make sure that we get Eric out of here in time to watch these games. Thanks you guys so much for watching. Enjoy all of the extended wild card weekend for Darius Butler, Kendall Valenzuela, Sam Monson, Ian Hartitz, and Eric Eager. I am Trevor Sikkema. We will see you guys next week for the divisional round of the playoffs. Enjoy.